You ready? Okay. Good afternoon. I'd like to call this Hartford School Board meeting to order at 6:02 and ask if there's any changes, additions, and approval of the agenda.
I think we're okay. I'm not sure if you still want to do the executive session with coaches in here, Russ, or at least start the conversation.
I think we need to start the conversation, yes.
Good.
All right,
Okay, do I have a motion?
move that we accept the agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded to accept the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, recognition of an outstanding student, and they were obviously not able to make it tonight. Do we want to name the person, or do we want to try to see if they would like to come next week? Up to the board.
Next meeting?
I think that would be nice if we could see if they would like to come, because we've got one other student that we have let her do at the next meeting because of her athletics. She hasn't been able to come.
I don't have a
Okay,
problem with that.
Yeah,
Okay.
The next meeting is supposed to be a joint meeting with the select board.
Oh,
well, we'll
So-
just have two students. Do you want
I
to
don't know
not
if you
do
want
it?
to do it that or do it at the first June meeting. It's up to you, but I just
I
wanted
have
to.
no problem with our students being seen and recognized by the town as well.
I think it's a grand idea, actually. I would like to do it.
Mr. Merrill.
Since there's only two of them, it won't take
yeah,
but a few
but
minutes to
still.
get it done. And it's a great idea to have that combination and to
Yeah.
let the whole town, yeah.
It may be on, instead of June, I mean, May, what is it, 24th, May 23rd, which is a Tuesday, and I was gonna discuss that later, but little preview that it might be.
Okay, well, we can still let
Yeah.
the parents or the guardians know of, for these
Whenever
students.
it's-
Pardon me?
Whenever a meeting.
Yeah, whenever the
Yeah.
meeting was. I'd like to do that too, please. Thank you. Communication and support to the board.
Yeah,
Policy EL9.
Couple
Tom.
things tonight. As you probably know, we're in the middle of hiring season. For teachers, it's the middle. For administrators, it's sort of the end. And we've had a lot of different searches, filled a lot of positions really well, which is great. Tomorrow is the equity director, sort of community and faculty engagement forums. So if you can make it to one of those, that's great. I just sent an email to all of HSD, but both finalists will be here all day into the night. And you should have an email about all the details, and the community has it. Pretty exciting. We also finalized the replacement for Roy.
Aw.
Monday, the finalist accepted, so I'll be talking about that later on in the appointments, but we're really excited to have a new director after a long search and a long hiring committee deliberation around who to hire. We had 14 applicants for that, narrowed it to 4 in the first round of interviews, then 3 finalists, and then offered it to someone from up north. The Seussical, the musical, is going on this week. The middle school's musical, very exciting. They've been working really hard on it. It's pretty exciting. See that finally take place. AP tests all week at the high school. Really, they've had 2 weeks of testing because last week was cognitive testing. So it's been pretty intense. The equity committee is sharing different ideas on how to celebrate our last day, which is Juneteenth, as we talked about at the last meeting. We're doing our last round of panorama, the social emotional assessment. When is that? By the end of the month, right? Yeah. This assessment provides data for Roy to use with his ends reporting regarding health and well-being. that we're gonna do at the first June meeting. We're gonna do our
Good.
ends reporting under the new model. Yeah, like I said, schools are either finished or they're nearing the end of the new state testing program, Cognia. It's been a kind of a crazy rollout because, for years we did SBAC, then it was on pause because of COVID, and then they adopted out of the blue this new assessment called Cognia. And it wasn't ready. There was no information to train teachers. And finally, there was information to train teachers, and they had to do the test, like the next week. So it's just been this very crazy rollout of a brand new assessment, as well as, the state, needing to audit certain sites and see how we were implementing the test. It's some federal requirement, but it's just super stressful. So I want to thank all the teachers and staff and administrators for sort of putting up with it all and putting their best foot forward to get it done as best we possibly could. But it has been a big challenge, right? Yeah. So those are a few things.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
may I ask a question of the superintendent?
Absolutely.
And this is a simple yes or no answer, no explanation. Depending on the answer, I will also request a follow-up. And then my fellow board members can chime in or offer their opinions if they want to. There's been a lot of reading in the paper about 38 school districts being under, I guess, monitoring. Are we one of them?
In special ed?
Yes,
Yeah, no, not that I'm aware of.
excellent. But that's the kind of, we need to communicate up front. Because if we don't say anything,
Yeah.
people are going to presume the worst. I started to presume the worst.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, yeah, no, it's a good thought, because sometimes, in my role, that things are so hectic, you go, oh, we're not being monitored, great. We're doing okay. And you sort of let that go because you've got so much stuff. So I have to stop doing that.
I would agree, Tom. And
Yeah.
in some level, I hope you don't take this too personally. It's a little disrespectful because if somebody had come to me and said, are we one of them?
Yeah.
And I said, I don't know. That does not appear we're in control of the district. I'm done.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Tom, have you got anything else, Tom?
No, thank you.
Okay. Let's step down to the grievance process. GP2. We'll talk,
Governance.
what did I say?
Grievance.
Grievance. Sorry. That must have been on my mind there. I've been in meetings all day, guys. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Governance process. Tom, I'll turn it back over to you.
All right, great. We've read the resolution at the last meeting, and the board really wanted to do this resolution for Ann Reynolds at a business meeting. So, again, this is to recognize Ann's efforts on behalf of the town of Hartford and the Hartford School Board for everything she did so generously and so well, and read it into the record, which is the formal record of the town of Hartford, and it goes in the town clerk's office to be kept forever and ever and ever. And nice to give her that little recognition. I don't know if board member wants to read it into the record or
No.
not.
Okay, the one thing I want to ask before we do this. We are going to get a copy of this on nice paper.
Yes.
To be bound so we can sign it.
Exactly.
Okay, good. Just want to make sure we're gonna do it right.
And I will give someone in the family a framed copy
Okay,
for
good.
them.
So resolution. Whereas Ann Reynolds has served as the Hartford Committee on Racial Equity and Inclusion. And whereas her unique knowledge of both public schools and town government has enabled her to serve the town of Hartford and the Hartford School District with vision and effectiveness. And whereas her work on behalf of the school district, having gone far beyond that which might be expected, has demonstrated competence, sensitivity, honesty, and dedicated civic concern. Now therefore be it resolved by the citizens of the town of Hartford that Anne Reynolds be given a vote of sincere appreciation for her 5 years of service, and furthermore, that this resolution be recorded in the town records dated this 10th day of May, 2023. So moved.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to present Ann Reynolds, the resolution for Ann Reynolds. And Tom will get us copies to sign and also do a framed copy for the family. Did I ask for a vote?
Not yet.
Oh. I will ask for a vote now. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Sorry, guys. Tom, back to you.
Okay. The 2023-24 board work plan. I know that Doug probably isn't all that familiar with this document, but I like to get it out as early as I can, just with sort of what we did this year as far as monitoring reports and the work of the board, and keeps everybody organized with what we're doing and where we're going. So for the most part, I transposed last year's calendar on next year, or this year's calendar on next year, as far as the reports, and I replaced Hava Walter with Doug Heavysides. I'm hoping that piece is sort of okay, but I think where we need to do some work is on the ends reports, the linkage meetings, board education, board process, that piece. It doesn't all have to be done tonight, but I like to sort of get you thinking about how you're going to tackle those things, and what you want when, what information you want when, and sort of get your head around all the work that we have coming up. So thoughts on how to proceed with that, or is this a good start, or?
We just
What's your
hope whoever
pleasure?
succeeds me is not a tax accountant.
I love the idea of at least, even if it's just loosely thinking about the engagement meetings and sort of plotting that out for the whole year with what you think you want when, and then we can all prepare.
Right.
These are the ones I knew you did this year. That stuck, and then there was several open.
As just an idea, I would think the January 24th meeting, like we did this year, would be a perfect time again to do explanation of the budget, especially since it is so close to whatever voting day is.
Mhm.
Definitely. I thought that was great. Dedicate a whole meeting just explaining all those terms and acronyms and the
Yeah.
process.
Act as a audition or practice for the actual budget night meeting.
Yeah. And whoever's dumb, smart enough to replace me.
You think we're letting you out of this that easy?
I understand.
The rest of your house hasn't solved. We've been good.
But Nancy took the hex off. So you got
I bribed you.
and I think as part of that, a subsection really should get into whatever the special education funding and collaborative fundings, because I think those are two areas
It's a great one.
that
Mhm.
no one understands,
Right.
So,
and their influence or not lack of in the collaboratives.
Well, and the whole new rules change that establishes this MTSS system, which is multi-tiered system of supports. That's a huge change. So having a meeting or two just dedicated to that would be worthwhile.
And I'm going to take this opportunity to repeat my remarks from last meeting, which is I would very much like us to get a report on our observance of our obligations towards trying to deal with climate warming or climate
Oh, yeah.
change. And we want to get a date on here that will be when that happens. It does not have to be immediately. It clearly would take a long time to pull together all the
Mm.
documentation, statistics, and so forth, but I wanted it to
Mm.
be there so it doesn't slip by us and we do actually have that conversation.
Do you see that as an engagement?
I see that much more as an engagement
Okay.
in the business.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
That
And
would be great.
And since Peter correctly pointed out that we should do it, make the schedule early, that would be, in my mind, a great topic for the February meeting. Sort of
Right in the middle of heating season.
yeah, yeah, and we hope the success of the budget. And if the administration's ready and far enough in advance, it would not be taxing in a time where they're very busy.
I think it's a great idea because more and more we're faced with decisions that could be a greener decision, but will be more expensive. And the way that, our funding is and the constraints that we have, we're often left with, we got to do what's cheapest, quickest, and it would be nice to hear the board's sort of
I have a
thoughts on that.
I have a thought, by the way. We have, up until the next meeting, we have failed to have a whole lot of joint town and school meetings. We had been on a period of time prior to COVID in which we did those with some regularity. Because the climate change document which we entered into was a joint town school document. Perhaps we could make the meeting in which we talk about that occur also at one of the joint town school meetings, which would also be our engagement meeting. And that would allow us to sort of combine multiple things in one meeting.
And that would also be a great, because please correct me if I'm wrong. The resolution the town passed about meeting certain deadlines only applies to the town. We signed a joint resolution,
Yes, we did.
which we should honor, obviously,
Yes,
but we're not under the same obligation as the town.
but it's very relevant to the townsfolk, what we combined are doing on this subject.
Yeah, I understand, but I mean, so people understand if somebody says, why is the school district being so cheap? Or whatever they might say, or they're not concerned about climate change.
Yeah.
There are differences.
Mhm,
We are united for a cause, as we should be,
mhm.
but there are differences in how we fulfill that cause.
Yeah, and then there seems to be, like I said, many more decisions that are, there could be a greener solution, but we haven't planned well. And that's, related to our facilities funding and our facilities and maintenance sort of planning.
And I would
But
like,
those decisions, they cost more money, but over the long haul, they may save us money or really reduce our climate emissions. So it'd be nice to sort of make sure
Yeah.
that's part of the conversation.
I would like at least as quickly after school gets started again in 2023, I would like one of our engagement meetings be to sit down with the public and explain to them what we do, what we cannot do, and why.
And when you say we, are you talking the board?
The board,
Okay.
the board, I'm sorry, yes. the
No, I
board.
mean, I just want to clarify.
Oh, yes, no.
Okay.
I think that people have a misconception about what we can or cannot do, or what we're allowed to do and what we're not allowed to do legally. And I think that it would be beneficial to everyone not only our community, but for us to be able to sit down with them and go over it and put it how Russell does when he explains the budget, put it in very layman's terms and say, yes, we have concerns about what's going on in our community too. But as a school board, we're not allowed to do anything about that. And here's why. And I just think it's really important, and especially right now in our town.
You could explain how the school board governs.
Yes, exactly.
And
Exactly.
processes for bringing issues to the board.
Hmm.
Why, and I don't understand, I'm gonna ask a question. There is no linkage meeting in September. Why?
I think there could be. I should have just said open engagement there.
Yeah, that's fine,
Yeah.
Tom.
Yeah.
But to get to Nancy's point, that would be the meeting.
Yeah, I think I just missed that.
Okay, yeah,
For
that's
whatever
that's
reason.
what I thought. So I mean, that's not a big deal. But the September engagement would
that
be
would
the
be a great
kickoff,
time.
shall we say. And then that would also intertwined with that, a slight discussion of the ends and what we're going to be monitoring.
Mhm.
Yeah. This is good. Again, like I said, I take this from this year's work plan, so perhaps in September, we had like 2 business meetings. September can be sort of a busy month, like June or May sometimes. And around budget, but sometimes we end up with an engagement meeting and a regular board
Mhm.
meeting, because it's just too much stuff that has to be done in a timely way. But yeah, that's a good one.
And while we're doing that, within the next month or so, I'm going to present to the board not an organizational, but a explanation about when people want to run for the board and they go, oh, I'm going to run for the board because I can do this and I can do that and I can make these changes. And then they get on the board and they go, oh, wow, I didn't know I was going to have to serve on this committee and that committee. And it was going to take 4 hours here and 3 hours there, and not even counting the times that we're sitting down here like this. And I just think, and I've already asked Lisa if the clerk could do this, if they could physically hand this piece of paper to someone saying, here are some of the duties that you would be required if you're going to run for board, other than getting your 30 signatures. Here's the other things that are going to be required for you that they had no idea that that's what was going to be required of them. They just see us meeting a couple of times a month, and then they think, many people do, not everyone obviously, but
Yeah.
many people do think, well, that's only 2 times a month, I can do that. And I think that they need to be educated as to what else is involved in being a member of this board, other than just those 2 meetings a month that we do.
It's only fair that they don't get blindsided.
That too, yes. And give them a chance to ask some questions then, maybe of us as the board, or to Tom, or, oh, you're going to be often teaching in a classroom. So I think it's real important, and I've been working with VSBA on this, and I think when I give it to everybody to look at, I'm hoping that you'll give me constructive criticisms and how we might change wording, or what we might put on there, or what we might take off of there. But I just think it's real important, because I remember when I got on the board, I had no idea that there was going to be these other meetings that I was going to be
Nobody does.
going to. Exactly.
2 meetings a
It
month.
doesn't
Oh,
mean
that's
that I
not
wouldn't
too
have
bad.
done it. It just means that I would have been more educated about it and more prepared.
And we have an opening in November, which seems the perfect time, because wouldn't we have to get petitions in?
Yes.
Yeah. And I would add to that, hand them a copy of our policies and
Yes.
maybe a little explanation on our governance style, So to wrap into your point about the limitations of power.
Right, yeah. Okay, is that okay with everyone?
That's great. The only thing I think we haven't talked about is retreat, a retreat topic and a retreat date, which doesn't have to be locked in stone, but even a ballpark of when you think, if you want to do one, and then when you think you want to do one in the summer. Usually we've done them, I think, first, second, third week of August, something like that, before school starts, but
Mhm.
not in place of usually want some sort of a business meeting before school starts, so you know what's going on.
So the second week of August, I'm going to be on my vacation. First one in 3 years, so that will be great.
Congratulations.
Yay!
Feel a good sense of accomplishment, returning to normalcy. So
Alright.
if we can work around that, I think that the August time period is a good one.
All right.
It gives the staff a chance to pull together the bones of the meeting. It
You'll have a
also
new
means that we're
person.
not doing it in July, which is the
Yes.
traditional day.
Yeah.
Of the year, month that we don't meet, so some people have a chance to also have a vacation. And
Great.
we have a chance to sort of refresh ourselves a little bit. Subject matter, nothing is immediately coming to mind. We've done an awful lot of stuff in the past on process, on trying to find ends. We did equity work. It certainly doesn't hurt to do what we've done with some regularity, which is just bring in an outside expert on how boards worked and how they work together to remind us of what we should be doing. But I'm not sure that's the most pressing need at the moment. So I'm a little bit betwixt and between in terms of what we might have as the subject this year.
And I guess either in that November meeting or in a retreat, I like the idea. Also, the limitations of the open meeting law
Mhm.
and how to follow it.
That's a good subject, yeah.
Very good subject.
And I guess the retreat could be a two topic. I mean,
Certainly.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
if you did it in the retreat, you could do that.
Mhm.
And then maybe an explanation of some of the testing or new initiatives that are going on in the school. So when somebody asks, what is,
Yeah, well, this MTSS system would be a nice topic to sort of
again, yeah.
talk about in a leisurely way, because it's going to have a big impact on how we do business.
I have a thought. Just because it's been so divisive and disorganized, would it be a good idea to have a session where we talked about our relationship with the Vermont Department of Education?
With our Department of what?
Education.
Oh, education.
Or agency, I guess it is.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
Because that leadership and the way they have sort of dropped various bombs on us over the
Last week.
last couple of years.
Cognitive testing.
Yeah, you know,
Mhm.
that's been an
Yeah.
interesting sort of, we don't directly influence them, but they certainly directly influence us.
Would we
Yeah.
like to get the new person in?
And maybe we could do something. Sort of talk
Yeah.
about our happinesses and unhappinesses and what the consequences are. And I have to admit, I've not always felt a great sense of warmth and growing sense of brotherhood about them in terms of some of the things they've done. But they are a major portion of sort of what we have to deal with. So I'm just coming up with ideas.
No, I think that's an
That's
excellent
an
one.
interesting one, I think. Yeah.
Another one we've just finished with VSBA, so I was running in here a while ago. we hired a private individual to send out a survey to each one of the board members on VSBA, and then completely not related to anybody, I mean, not related work-wise to the VSBA, and to see how we thought things were going, and a whole variety of things, you know, how the meetings are run, how the executive director is doing, how the financial committee is doing, the whole 9 yards. And then they sit down and went over, did all of her analysis, and then sit down and said, okay, this is what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing from all of you board members. And it was anonymous, so you could write whatever you wanted to. And it was pretty eye-opening from listening to 20 plus of us that are on that board. But I wonder how would it be beneficial for us? We're a small board. I know we do the monitoring, but when I look, I don't believe I've ever been asked to set goals for myself as a board member to how to help the board. So that was one of the things that came up. And how do we merge those goals together as board members towards the goals for the board? How do we accomplish that? How do we make it happen? I'm just throwing things out there, but I just thought it was really interesting, some of the things that came back.
So I think that's an interesting idea. I suspect that given the tiny size of our group,
Might not work.
that anonymity
Oh,
will not really be possible, but we could make a virtue of that. I mean, really do this as a sort of come with your grievances and why you have a problem, to try to work some of this out and actually try to be honest with each other and address it forthrightly.
That's a super idea, because that can differentiate us from, let's just say, another board in town. And I mean, because one of the things that concerns me is there's a great distrust of all levels of government,
of course.
starting at the federal, the state, and local. And that would be an excellent example of why the school board should be like in the local trust area, that we can have philosophical differences of opinion, and we do. And we do, and we can both recognize there may be some merit. I disagree with Peter, but I know his heart's in the right place. And if I lose, I've said my piece, and I just have to support. I will support. I don't have to. I will support the decision of the board.
No, I think I was thinking about this literally on the way in, about how our board has traditionally been able to work with people who have wildly different beliefs about what is correct, what is right, how society should be structured. And we've always managed to do it in a way where we've been relatively civil to each other and respectful of each other and have worked to consensus. And that the sort of political divide, which is so present in our society, hasn't yet infected, and hopefully never will, this group, is in part because, you know, there was a newspaper account about Vermont. I think it was the New York Times or something. And somebody was quoted about Vermont being different in that you might not always like your neighbor, but you had to be nice and civil to your neighbor because they might be the one who pulled you out of the snowbank. And we're small enough and dependent upon each other enough that not only do you have that exchange of support and so forth, but we tend to see each other as people and not as examples of an ideology or a,
Mhm.
and it's very hard. It's easy to dislike the symbol of something that you dislike. It's much harder to dislike the person who's engaging with you, even if you don't agree with them. And so I think it's a virtue.
Absolutely, and I think we could enhance it. Nancy and I have had discussions that maybe it should be a policy within the rules of board members getting together, let's say just socially, not talking about
Right.
board business, to help develop that very level of Peter's a great guy, Doug's a super guy. He hadn't been mentioned much, so I threw him a bone.
What's going on? What do I got myself into?
Yeah, but that kind of interaction. So I think it's important because if I know what's important to you,
Yes.
I can then judge how much I may go against. Like if it's something that I really don't care about or don't have the level of care, I know how important it is to you.
Yeah.
I would then agree with you type thing. Like it just makes it easier to be collaborative.
Mhm.
Yes. The open meeting law is a wonderful thing, but it doesn't come without costs.
Right.
And one of those costs is you lose the ability to have informal conversations that are not making decisions, but allow you to work out what exactly is your thoughts on this? How do we do it? Is there a way I can change your mind that we can then have the discussion before the public? And how we deal with that bridge, that legal issue, because we don't want to violate the.
Absolutely
But
not.
at the same time, there is something that the baby did in some cases get thrown out with the bathwater with this.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but if we have an informal get together and make the ground rule that we can't talk about school business,
Yeah.
Mhm.
that's okay.
I would want the school
Legal
attorney
opinion.
to weigh in on that, but it would seem to me that if
Yes.
we could set the ground rules in such a way that it was clear that we weren't actually having a secret meeting
Yeah,
and make it,
Yeah.
maybe we're very careful to be publicly in a restaurant where lots of people can walk by and listen to something. Because we're not doing it at each other's houses where it's.
we'll ask Hartford, but you need to tap it.
I don't know, but that's an interesting idea.
Yeah, and I
We're
mean,
getting a little off topic, but I think this is interesting.
and I think it's part of the topic of showing
Yeah.
a continuity or a collective thought process.
Mhm.
And even if we can't do it like a whole board,
Yeah.
we could do two people,
We could easily do two people,
Oh,
because
yeah.
it's never,
Yeah.
never in a quorum.
and especially the new person, because that would help them
Exactly.
get comfortable
Right.
with this discourse with Peter, Nancy. Everyone's comfortable with Doug.
Well, and if push came to shove, you could always warn it as such. Warn it as,
It's true. Yeah.
But agenda,
No discussion.
That's what I
of
mean.
School.
Agenda, informal discussion or, I don't know.
Can't discuss.
but we
the
better not
business.
serve food.
Right.
Because then we get more people.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you.
Thank
I'll
you.
work some ideas around the August retreat because you gave me quite a few topics and try to figure out what goes with what and how to do that. Good.
Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Joint meeting with the select board. We are planning, the select board member and H. Corey member reached out to Kevin, Coach Christie and myself. And right now we're planning a meeting with Mary Gannon facilitating around DEI. And unfortunately, the best date for her is Tuesday instead of our regular Wednesday meeting, be Tuesday if the board can deal with that. I think it's the 23rd. 17th, yeah, 23rd,
23rd of May.
same time. Yep,
Same that time.
here, same time.
6 p.m.
a group of us is planning to meet Friday to discuss the agenda and sort of flesh out, the topic and how we'll help Mary facilitate the agenda. So I thought one is, can you all make it on Tuesday, the 23rd, and then, no? All right, so we might have to change
Sorry,
that.
because since it was not a scheduled date.
Right,
I
well, yeah, that's
scheduled
why I
something.
asked.
Yeah,
All right, so,
All right, and I don't even need to look. It's just
well,
getting
you
my
guys
calendar.
you can meet. I ain't that important,
Oh, please.
except in my own mind.
well, we'll try to go back to the 24th. She didn't say the 24th was out of the question. She just said the 23rd was better.
Okay. And I think as you're having that meeting would be the time to try to at least conceptually schedule the second meeting where operational business, because the DEI work is critically important, but
So it's,
Well, you could
I'm
do
gonna
both.
try to be diplomatic here. A recent article discussed the fact that running a town, DEI is critically important, but there are operational issues where there is interplay. For example, the idea of having the joint, like if there's a joint or a matter that concerns the select board at our meeting, having that up front so that
mhm.
you don't have to go through the whole school board meeting. And then the whole idea about coordinating bonds, that type of thing.
Well, you could, we could have a section for that at this meeting. It doesn't have to all be DEI. It's what was brought up to me.
I'm
by the-
flexible, but I do think we need to,
So we could at least broach some of these ideas on how do we get more cooperative. I think that we can't finalize anything until there's actually a town manager in place to work with.
Mhm.
But it certainly wouldn't be a bad idea to say, this is what we're bringing to that discussion.
and float the idea.
Yeah.
That way, when the town manager's hired and we have that second meeting, then at least we can discuss agreement, disagreement, compromise.
It'd be really nice too, to just plan out the schedule, even if it's 6 months out or 4 months out.
Yes,
We're gonna try to meet, what's the time span? When are we gonna
With
meet
enough,
again?
enough lead time that
Yeah,
it's not already gonna be obligated time. Or we
You
can
should-
find it on non-obligated time.
you
I
have
mean,
one,
I think 6 months and maybe one, the first time's gonna be difficult, in November. That way, the boards could be on a same page going into
mhm,
budget
mhm.
presentations.
but get on a regular schedule of like every November and every May, there's a joint meeting of the school board and the select board, so everybody knows. And you're starting to compile topics that you want to bring up or things you want to discuss. I think that would be really healthy. That's sort of what we used to do, but we've gotten.
Right,
Mhm.
by the way,
Right.
I like the practice of having the meal together. I think
Yeah.
that there's a reason that.
Yeah,
sitting down
it
and breaking
improves
bread-
attendance.
Yeah, well, no, it improves attendance, but also, quite frankly, it's a social interaction
Yeah,
that builds hopefully a level of trust.
Or begins to build, yes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I apologize for being a little flip, but I agree with you.
Yeah, we used to do that more
Yeah, we
regularly.
did.
Mhm.
One time we had a speaker, a keynote
Mhm.
speaker that opened the school year, also spoke to the school board and the select board, did that up at the Getaway. We also had a couple meetings at the Wilder,
Yes, the former,
Conference,
yeah, former church up there.
yeah, that were really nice.
yeah.
It was a nice space and it was
Hmm.
nobody's personal ground, so it felt neutral.
Right.
Right. And it was a big space.
Yeah.
Yeah, good idea. All right.
Brings us down to public comment. Do we have anybody online?
Do you mind, I'm sorry, the board committee assignments?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, and that's what I did was I put the finalized assignments, and then I just wanted the board to review that, make sure it's right. You know what you signed up for, so you don't get a surprise. And then maybe there's some reports too, Nancy. There might be some board reports tonight, committee reports.
Okay,
And Mr. North, may I apologize for not responding to your request for somebody to cover for you. I didn't see the request until it was too late.
I understand that because I didn't realize I couldn't make it till 5:55 when my car didn't start.
it's okay, I went. I attended for you.
Yes,
No,
Nancy.
that's what we decided, wasn't it?
Or actually, I think we decided roving, but if you want to be the
Oh,
alternate.
I don't care, I just, yeah,
But I do
fine.
think there's value in having a consistent member than an alternating member. Because the consistent member would be able to explain context in some situations. But all of us would be involved in the DEI work in
Right.
helping coordinate
right.
the committee and board interaction.
I know Doug attended his first HACTC advisory board meeting yesterday,
Mm,
so he probably has a report on that.
Yeah, we were. I was very fortunate. And not that I should have been, but we met with, after the meeting, we met with two of the seniors from Hartford who did a personal presentation of what they've accomplished in their 2 years at the tech center. And I was just, if the rest of the students even come close to these two, we're doing everything right. This young man who did his presentation first was through the culinary arts program. And this young man knows exactly what he's doing, where he's headed, and how he's going to get there. I mean, I was just so impressed. These were very articulate young adults. And the young lady was in the cosmetology program. And likewise, she had they were totally opposites, but yet both of them accomplished the same goal.
mhm.
And I was asking Tom before the meeting whether they had a time where the rest of the students had the opportunity to present
Mhm.
theirs, because I personally would be one of the first people standing in line, waiting for a chair to sit down to be able to see what these kids have accomplished, because it's outstanding.
We'll make sure that you know, students know that you wouldn't mind being invited, because we get invited to their meetings. In fact, there's a young person who invited my whole, the whole office to her portfolio presentation, because we were sort of a part of her education. She'd come and do her internship in the office in different various business roles and did a great job. And I was so happy to see that she invited all of us to sit in with, other
Mhm.
close members, of her family and her teachers.
Yeah, the one bad thing about it was we were focused with our two. And by the time we were finished, because the others were meeting
Mhm.
with their representatives also. And I would have loved to have been able to have
Mm,
listened to some of the others.
Yeah.
So,
It's that annual meeting where you meet with the two students from each town meet with their representatives. So the superintendent and the school board member from their town or region. So it's really nice. Everybody enjoys it. Had a great attendance. But you're right, we only get to see those two students. It'd be nice to do like a round robin and see everybody.
but it's, once again, from my perspective, it shows that Hartford has these tremendous programs running
Mhm.
collaboratively or not. And we really do not publicize what's being accomplished. Because anybody seeing and listening to these two students would not have a doubt in their mind saying, you know, are they ready to graduate? Are they prepared to go out into the world? I mean, it's just, she mentioned that they had a day where they had 30 construction companies representatives come to the tech center and talked to all of the students on the buildings and trade.
Mhm.
And they were all looking for employees.
Right.
And so, I mean, that tells you something right there.
I had a conversation, somewhere within the last 2 weeks with the gentleman who is in charge of the dining room at the Peachy Club. And he said that they're constantly looking to see if there are people from the culinary program that they could hire. So,
And I don't know if this is appropriate or not, but it almost seems like that meeting, or maybe an additional meeting, would be a great one in the community engagement type situation. Because I mean, people want to know what happens here at Hartford. And we could, not just with the tech center, but some of the others. It wouldn't have to be long, but this would be a great example of showing some of the great things happening.
Yeah, like a portfolio session with
Yes.
representatives from each school or something around.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
I think
Because
would
it
be
does,
great.
you know, not to be cliche, but it just warms your heart to see
Yeah.
how serious some of the students take their work and how much they put into it and how articulate they are about what they're doing and their future plans. Like, both of these students had their sort of next step mapped right out, what they were going to do, how they were going to get there. Really nice.
And I guess I just had one other thing for you guys to consider. It would also be nice if we allow, maybe for one meeting, if a student not in one of these groups or two, to come talk to the board about their experience at Hartford and the community. I mean, yes, there's concerns, but again, across demographic.
Mhm.
So, I mean, as great as all those students are, the one potential issue I see is us being accused of cherry picking.
Oh, yeah.
And if I mean, again, we would have to trust the administration to bring somebody who wasn't just going to say horrible things. But just a normal, that's not the right word. There is no right word politically.
No.
But
Representative.
representative, thank
There
you.
you go.
That's why you're a lawyer.
I'll choose to take that as a compliment.
It was meant that way. Because accountants aren't eloquent, as I just demonstrated.
No, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah. I think it's
Other
great.
committee reports? I don't think too many others have.
No, Hartford Community Coalition's got a board meeting tomorrow. So I'll have something to report next time. We're very, very busy. I know that we've got the picnic coming up in June. What else is going on that board? I didn't look at I was not,
Well, we're going to
Looking
be
at it
discussing our budget.
yeah, we are going to be discussing our budget. Yes.
And I think the other thing that we're going to be discussing is the second round of the grant
Yes.
that funds the organization, and how we demonstrate compliance and what the future would hold
Mhm.
in that area.
There's a lot going on. We're trying to find a place now for another teen center. We're actively looking, trying to figure out where's going to be the best location and that we can afford with our budget. we're already stashing a few things away, furniture wise.
With the treasurer.
To hold on to until we can get it set up. But hopefully, within 6 months, we'll have some place that we can say, okay, let's get a bunch of teens in here and paint the walls and sweep and dust and do all that stuff and get it ready for them, and then they can be a part of it. I think it'll be a really good place for all the kids to be able to come. Again, we had one for a while, and then that kind of ended, and COVID kind of squashed a whole lot of plans. But I think I'm very excited about that part. But Hartford Community Coalition is very busy, very, very, very busy. We've already set up to start the summer program with the food, and that was really a little iffy there for a while, whether we were going to get it. And but we are, and so we're already looking for volunteers to help us get that distributed, and they always show up. That's the nice part. All we have to do is ask, and the community responds, and responds very well to it.
And don't you have a great coordinator of volunteers?
Yes, we do. Would you like to tell them?
It is my oldest daughter, Cassandra. So I'm incredibly biased.
Yes. Cassandra does.
Just a little bit proud, I bet.
Cassandra does an excellent job coordinating for our summer program. We're very fortunate to have her. Absolutely. The SBA is doing a lot of work now, a lot of same as what Coach is doing tonight, where we're trying to stay ahead of the game on what's going on up in Montpelier and how it would work best for all of our students and our faculties. That's about it. They're in the midst of a big, long meeting right now.
Am I correct in that there is talk of trying to forward the bill about funding for private schools?
There is.
Okay, so it's not necessarily a dead issue.
No, it's not.
Okay.
So I try to send as much information to you guys as I can. As soon as I get it, I try to get it out to you guys in case you need to talk to one of our local representatives or our chair and or write letters or make phone calls or do the emails that they request us to do, because they do make a difference. When they hear from enough people, it does make a difference as to how they decide. And obviously we won't always agree with everything they decide, but we have a voice. And I think it's really important, especially for people that serve on the school board, to express that voice. Anything else?
You're avoiding one, but I understand why.
Where am I avoiding? Oh, Corey.
Yeah.
Corey's meeting was interesting. There was some there was a lot of emotion, and this was at the first of the meeting, and one person just had to leave, and another person was asked to calm down out in the hallway. So it was very, very, very emotional. And for my first meeting going back, I just wanted to sit there and cry for what was going on. And they did get it back under control. And but the meeting was cut very short. But there has been conversations now, and I think everything will be much calmer, and some opinions were voiced, and now that's out in the open. And I think that hopefully at the next meeting that will be able to be discussed without the emotions that were expressed on the first meeting. They are still working very hard, and it's still going to be a good committee. A committee. It's still going to be working very hard. It's also a real touchy situation, touchy subject anyway. And so when emotions kind of flare up a little bit, then it makes it even more so. But it will be positive. It's going to be positive. We've had a few conversations in between. So, but it was just interesting.
And at the next meeting, are they talking about ground rules and that?
Yes, we are.
And I think one of the things that the boards could even do at the collaborative meeting is come to an agreement that any disagreement between Nancy and I stays at this level.
Yeah.
And does not come to the committee. Because it's not, in my mind, appropriate to be discussing what the school board voted on or didn't vote on in a committee meeting.
Right.
And that might help is everyone comes with that understanding. Again, I may not like what Peter says, but I'm not going to rehash it in a committee meeting.
Right. Yeah. Thank you.
I didn't mention you, Doug, because you're super.
And I think that's all of mine.
Yeah, that's enough.
Does anyone else got anything?
Did we do a building committee report?
We never did.
Okay, and please help me.
You know why? I mean, perhaps because Jonathan came to that meeting, but still, I think, it's a,
Okay, I mean,
yeah.
we're talking about some of the issues out there. For example, and I just read today from Nancy's forwarding that the PCB testing is going to continue. And as Jonathan said at the meeting, that's in the committee's mind, because until we know that result, to start planning additional projects of a large scale is out of the question.
Right.
And we did talk about the concerns raised about the stage and a collaborative effort to come up with a workable temporary type fix. And with the understanding that that stage is used for many things other than the performing arts. And as important as the performing arts are, it can't be a perfect performing arts stage because we'd ruin it candidates night. And that seems a little counterproductive. Anything I missed, Doug? Anything I missed? No. Okay.
Peter, you have anything?
I'm waiting for the public comments section.
Okay.
Who's about to come and, comment there.
Well, if there's no further committee reports, we shall proceed to the public comments. Do we have anybody online?
Nobody's in the waiting room waiting.
I'm sorry?
Nobody's
No
waiting.
one? Okay.
Then, some while back, and I'm not quite sure exactly how long ago it was, this board voted to have a student representative on the board with voting rights. I was supportive of the first part and not the second, but that's beside the point. The point is, we actually voted to do that. And since we voted to do that, I think it would be a good thing if we actually had, not now because we haven't warned it, but some work done, brought forward on how we're planning to implement that, what we're planning to do around student reps to the board.
May I ask one question, Peter?
Yeah.
The voting members were on the committee, the H-Quarter committee, correct? Because I don't think we can have voting members on this particular board. I think it was the H-Quarter board that we had.
Was it H-Corey? I thought.
Yeah, no,
It was the H-Core.
Okay. But still,
the principle's the same.
I wanted to say we really have had student representatives here who have uniformly done a really good job of bringing insight on all sorts of subjects, whether it's just life of the school or otherwise. And we have been without for quite some time. And I believe that it would be a good thing for this board to put some attention to that issue and to have a conversation with the superintendent's office on what proposals there might be to engage with the students who would be the reps, to have a program that would allow them to do it. There's been lots of conversation over the years of such things as making an actual course, other things like that. And so I just wanted to say, I would think it would be incumbent upon us to actually make this a thing again.
A priority, I would agree. And in that saying, maybe we should also discuss if there's impediments, I think that's what you were leading to, or how can we make it more attractive?
Yes, so one of the problems we've run into is basically those people who are wanting to do it are often doing it because they're wanting to pad their resumes to make themselves look
Mhm.
more attractive to colleges or whatever, which is thoroughly legitimate. But the kinds of people who are thinking like that are also the kinds of people who also have 15 other activities which get in the way of their participating, whether it's athletics or anything else.
Mhm.
A lot of them have been involved in theater and so
Mhm.
forth like that. They tend to obviously be some of our more ambitious and aggressive students, and they tend to have conflicts. So how do we deconflict things? How do we make it actually work? The student really, really has to want to be there for this to work. And there have been various degrees of commitment to the board over the years.
So I think the question is, what else, what other benefit other than enhancing their resume? I won't use the word padded. Now I'm a lawyer.
For the first June sort of business meeting, if you call it that, this should be a topic.
Yeah,
Yes,
Yeah, because I
please.
can fill you in on where we're at and what impediments I think there are, because they're certainly significant. We haven't had one for a while.
Yeah.
And some ideas around that.
Yeah, and some of the things can be perhaps done by the administration, and maybe there are some things that can be done by us.
Yeah, we've been trying.
oh,
But-
there's no doubt of that.
Yes.
Mhm.
We're not questioning the
frustrating.
sincerity,
Yeah.
but, and maybe it would be, is to expand what Peter said, a chance to get to know a board member or two before they come on.
Mhm.
And we have discussed in the past, having a board member be a mentor at
Right.
some level
Mhm.
for that student rep. So if we do that and get together, and maybe that way we'd also be able to judge if there's like, I guess compatibility,
Mhm.
because there's certain people who would not want to work with me, surprisingly enough.
Oh,
Yeah, and there are things like transportation. Can we
Yeah.
get to it?
yes.
I, in the past, have provided transportation to some of the student members. They could come here,
Mhm.
and I'm not just speaking solely of my daughter. And it isn't always easy for somebody who's in high school to get access. And the other thing is, we haven't done this so recently, but on occasion we go very late. That becomes a problem. So there are a lot of sort of structural things we might want
Right.
to look at and see what we can
Mm.
do to
Yeah.
And maybe hear,
enable.
and hear from the administration, like ranking the impediments.
Mm.
If time is the greatest, the time we have the meetings the greatest, then we have to discuss the pros and cons of switching
Mhm.
to accommodate the students, that type of thing.
Mm.
Right, so.
Do we have like a job description for the students to look at?
Mhm.
So when they're looking at it,
Yeah.
that they hopefully
So one of our.
they know what we're
students actually
expecting.
Put together a handbook.
The whole
and
handbook,
thing
yeah.
like that.
Yeah,
Did a beautiful job.
Right.
good.
But-
Okay.
My daughter did an awful lot of stuff to try to engage with the administration and people in ways that we hadn't done. So she ended up doing things that were not necessarily normally associated with the role. And I happen to be biased enough to think that those actually were good interactions and made a real difference.
I
But
did.
So
Mhm.
what kinds of things do we want to do?
Right.
Do we want to expand it beyond just showing up on occasion, having an opinion? Do we want it to be an interactive kind of thing with the administration as well?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's all,
Well, we have some ideas. I
Yeah.
definitely have some ideas because I kept thinking we were gonna have a new rep and then recently that student decided not to do it.
Mhm.
But trying to figure out all those reasons why it's so difficult. You know, it is timing, it is, the students are very engaged in so many things. It's hard to do a Wednesday night, but maybe there are some ways we could accommodate that don't, you know, make you change the meeting time, but maybe there's a pre-recorded message from the board, the student representative that's presented, or
Mhm.
some sort of electronic way that we could make it a little more flexible. So maybe there's a way they work on some things during the school day with me or the person sitting in Roy's chair, and we just be a little more creative.
Mhm.
and have we approached the honors program coordinator
No,
about?
no, but we could.
Because I mean, that would be something where, since they have a public service requirement.
Mhm.
I just want to say, I love this conversation. But
Yeah,
we
but-
didn't warn.
Wow, yeah, you're right.
I don't want to go too far.
I was
down the
gonna
road.
say that, but I
Other
don't
than
like
bringing
that.
up the issue of, I really think it's important that we pay attention,
Yes.
and I'd like to get it be part of the agenda and.
Absolutely, and excuse me for the lack of following the rules.
I was gonna say that, but.
Even though I
don't
totally
police the board.
concur what you were saying, we need to
Yeah, I
not
got it.
have conversations that we haven't warned.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah.
any other public comments?
You represent the Vermont School Board
Mhm.
Association.
Mhm.
Last night, I joined them
Mhm.
for an hour and a half's meeting, orientation meeting. Part of which, since you brought up student representatives, I really felt bad. There was a student representing the Springfield School District there
Mhm.
for 60 some odd other school board members across the state of Vermont
Mhm.
to listen to and hear this young man. What's fact, what's fiction, I have no idea. I felt horrible for the young man to be put in this position. Because obviously there are things going on in Springfield that shouldn't be. I mean, I knew it, but I heard loud and clear, the principal had been fired. There was no control of the district. It was dangerous to go to school. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on and on.
Mhm.
And I'm just thinking to myself, how did this association allow this to happen? Someone should have stopped it right in the beginning, give him whatever support they could. But to sit there for an hour and a half, they had breakout sessions where they pulled people and put them in a room together. And this young man was throughout it. And I feel bad. I feel bad for Springfield, for the district itself. I feel, and I feel horrible for him. And I just, and you and I should have a little conversation
We
about
will.
my impression of this whole program, because I was taken back. It was not what I expected.
So he was there as a first time, just like you were?
Yes.
Is that why? Okay. Okay. Then, yeah, let's have a
There's one
conversation.
more program coming
Sure.
up next week, and it has to do with finance and budgeting. And I pray that it's better. than-
Okay. Yeah,
than
thank you for
the-
bringing that to my attention.
It's
Thank you.
just-
I will.
It was disaster. But I just, it was the first time I saw where a student was participating in part of a board and who made the decision to put him in this position to begin with. Was beyond, it's like, does not the school board exist?
Mm.
It sounds like ground rules weren't firmly established on
Yeah,
what should be talked about.
Mhm.
Because obviously that's a listing of grievances, and as you point out, that should have gone to the school board.
absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you.
You ready for consent?
One thing myself, Mr. Heaviside's only because you mentioned accessing the tech center presentations. One invitation that'll be going out, I'm sure, from Mark Buckland or the Student Creative Projects portion of the high school is their exhibition nights coming up on June 1st.
Mhm.
And that's a chance where you'll see students who are presenting alternative projects. So where they create their own pathways in the high school to meet their own needs, and students will be presenting their outcomes or things they learned about themselves. It's a lot of freedom in terms of what they choose to share, but it's a, for those of you who've been there, it's a spectrum from students learning that I'm not an independent learner, and let me tell you about my journey in finding that out about myself, to holy cow, once people got out of my way and I was able to go on my own, there's nothing I can't accomplish. So it's worth the time, and just if they were to come across to you, it's similar to what you just got to experience.
Would you send me an email?
As soon as I get it, I will be sure to share it with you.
Okay.
Thanks.
But I just know y'all are busy, so if you have a chance to block out the day now,
What time?
Can I,
yes, sir.
on that note, do we as a board try to go to things like this? Or the fact that there's a play coming up shortly, or actually, I've seen some emails going where the tickets are almost sold. But is there an attempt by us as a group to make sure that we're represented? I mean, for two things. From my communication issues of people seeing us and knowing we exist and who we are, to the fact that these students who are doing this don't always get recognized. And we should.
Good idea.
And this will not be popular probably, but if we do that, I actually think we should have name tags.
Yay! I've said that before.
And I mean, that way, again, people will
Exactly.
know that I'm on the board, Kitty's
Right.
on the board, and it makes us more human.
Yeah, and again, we should put this on the June agenda.
Yeah, we'll talk
maybe.
about it, but yes,
Yeah,
I won't get too far.
no, it's easy to do that, but it just would be a nice topic to go through and
Sure.
formally say, how are we gonna do that?
Yeah.
Okay, absolutely. And Doug, to reply to your question too, is it's not required that we do that stuff, but it sure is nice. I try to go to as much of the athletic stuff that I can. Sometimes it's two conflicts, one's over here and one's over here and something else is going on over here. But yeah, and I've gone into, actually I've attended a couple of the PTO meetings from the elementary schools. I just sit back, no conversation. I'm just listening. I'm just there, and they know I'm there, and it's a good thing to do. Number one, like you said, it puts you as a board member of their local school district in front with them. And number two, it gives you a chance to meet them and see what's going on, listen to what's going on in their schools. I think it's a grand idea. I encourage it, even though it's not my position to do so.
You certainly are entitled to an opinion. And
Thank you.
I think that the June meeting is really when we should start expressing.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Consent agenda, one set of minutes from the 26th engagement meeting, April 26th. Appointments, there's a few. Fabiola Hammond, DBS, new second grade teacher. Emily Brown, DBS, a special educator. Samantha Marcotte, third grade at DBS. Jim Hewitt of PE at DBS. Katie Van Sutton is, goes by Katie Sutton. She is the new director of curriculum instruction and assessment, so she'll be replacing Roy. Really excited to have her. I did send you her resume because I know you like to look at that. So there's an email with her resume and cover letter. But like I explained before, we had 14 applicants, which is very, very good nowadays. And we narrowed that, we had a committee of 10 with teachers and administrators from across the district reviewing the resumes and doing the interviewing and hiring process. So I sat on that committee with them, and it was a terrific group. And we quickly narrowed it to 4 first round finalists, interviewed the 4 and brought back 3 as finalists. And in that finalist round, we had them come and speak specifically to 4 problems of practice. So 4 issues in the school district that we're going to need their expertise helping us, resolve, plan for, develop programming. And we couldn't even rate the 3 finalists by number. The committee was so thrilled with all 3 finalists that we called them 1A, 1B, and 1C, which is pretty amazing that all 3 rated that well. We literally were comfortable with any one of those 3. So anyway, Katie Sutton did edge out the other 2, and that's who I'm nominating to you tonight. Brendan Tardif is a special educator at DBS, and then we had 1 resignation, Amy Fahey, who's a pre-K teacher. Then we have a whole bunch of monitoring reports. Boy, 2 from Peter covering Fahava, governing
Thank you
style.
for reminding me, by the way. I'd forgotten that I'd agreed to do that.
And thank you, Peter, for doing it.
Yes, we appreciate it.
If no one else has a comment, I have a comment. Surprise, surprise. And it's on the report. I think it's on EL7. Yes, yeah, but it is the asset protection. I have a problem with 7.4. And I'm struggling on how much detail I can get into. But there was
Really?
a matter
Yeah.
that goes exactly against this policy.
We probably, what you're supposed to do is move it out of the consent agenda. So I don't know if we put it on our next meeting
Okay,
agenda.
that would be
Would that be
fine with me.
appropriate?
'Cause we need, and that would
Yeah.
also be something to discuss at one of the meetings we're talking about how we operate. If you have a disagreement with one of the reports, how do you deal with that?
Right.
Yeah, that's what we usually do.
That makes sense, because
Yeah.
we're having a discussion.
Yeah, you pull it out of the consent agenda to put it in the discussion or the governance process agenda. Since we already passed that,
Okay, so
I mean, we could do it, you could go back,
no, I think you suggested the way it's been done,
Yeah.
and that's the way we should proceed.
yeah.
So I will make a motion that in the monitoring report on EL7 asset protection, paragraph 7.4 be removed from the consent agenda to be put on yes.
Do you wish to do that, or do you just wish to discuss that particular document? And we'll accept everything else except for EL7.
Okay, that works too.
Yeah.
I retract my original.
That would probably be better, and then we can go into the details.
Oh, fair, good point.
Yeah.
I will make a motion that we remove the entire EL7
That's
monitoring report for discussion at a future date.
Right here, I have a second.
I'd like to make a friendly amendment, which is that we approve the consent agenda with the exception of EL7, which will be discussed at a later date.
I accept your friendly amendment.
Second?
Yes.
Okay, motion has been made that we will take out EL7. We will move it to the next meeting for discussion, and we will accept the rest of the consent agenda.
Right. With the usual welcoming to those new employees and. Sorry, I got lost. Was there any people?
One.
And best wishes for the
Person
one
who's
retirement.
Right. So, agree? Vote?
Yes.
Yes, 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 yes.
You betcha.
Okay, waving my hands.
Just wait till we get to the report on the meeting.
Oh. Next meeting is an engagement topic to be determined.
Well,
think
So
we
that's,
already
we gotta
decided
do
that,
that, so
yeah.
we're gonna, okay, yeah, we got it. All
I'll
right.
have to let you know through email what the date is, or, if some reason somebody can't come the 24th, what we're gonna do.
And I guess it's important to say, given the size of both groups, at some point, a concession is gonna have to be made. Like if it's me, the sole impediment, you go back to the 23rd type thing, because getting 12 people together
It's hard
is
enough.
exponentially more
Yes.
difficult.
I agree. Thank you.
Right. Who wishes to do the meeting evaluation?
Well, I thought I committed to do it.
Well, I wasn't sure if you were still.
Sure, go for it.
I'm here, I'm breathing, so I'll do it.
Right.
At the end of the board meeting, each board member and the superintendent or appointed evaluator for the meeting, that's me, completes this monitoring form. The responses are shared and a discussion is held on areas that need improvement. The chair collects the completed form or their designee to use in the board's monitoring reports. Number one, board was prepared for the meeting. Satisfactory. Board's time was spent on ends, not means. Satisfactory. Each board member was given an opportunity to participate. I would say satisfactory. And please, if anybody disagrees, speak up. Board treated all persons with courtesy and fairness. Satisfactory. Board adhered to Robert's Rules of Order as appropriate and necessary. Satisfactory. Board adhered to its adopted governance style. It emphasized outward vision and encouraged diversity in viewpoints. It exercised strategic leadership, not administrative detail. It made distinction between board and staff roles. It used collective decision-making. It looked to the future. Satisfactory.
Hip, hip. Peter,
Yes, ma'am. So there has been decided that there's a need for an executive session. So I would like to move that pursuant to 1 VSA section 313A3, we find that there is need for an executive session to discuss the evaluation of a public employee, and that we also move to enter into said executive session.
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
All right, so they need to